missed a spot.
Beg your pardon?
OID FM Fort Lauderdale.
All right, Omega listeners. Right about now, we're going to go ahead and get tuned into the Youth Truth Show with yours truly, your host, Authencia Manning, right here on Omega Radio. So let's go ahead and get locked in. All right, you already know what time it is. It is now time for Youth Truth right here on Omega Radio with yours truly, your host, Authencia Manning. We're going to go ahead and get started today. This song here that we're going to go ahead and play, this one here is by Michelle Williams, an old one, but always a good one and a personal favorite of mine. This one is If We Had Your Eyes. So go ahead and stay locked in. We'll be right back.
Can you spare some change? It's what I heard him say at the light. So I dug through my ashtray. My good deed today changed my life. I thought I knew it all, quick to write him off. Looked like he was lost till I heard him speak. And now I've heard the voice before, I knew that it was yours. What she says to me all the time. She's so beautiful, nothing's ever wrong in her life. Yeah, that's what I thought until I saw the stars she got in her eye. That she was hiding from me. She never said a word, and all I said to her was that she loved her more than she could. God, if I had your eyes, I could love better, have more compassion, and I would understand what I'm going through while I'm going through. I'd be more patient. God help me to see things the way you see things. Did I already say, help me to be patient? Say that again. Wow. Give us your eyes, God.
All right, Omega listeners, how did y'all feel about that song? I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I did. And that was If We Had Your Eyes by Michelle Williams. Well, let's go ahead and get into things today. So for those of you just now tuning in, welcome to Youth Truth Show with yours truly, your host, the one and only Authencia Manning. So let's go ahead and get into it today. I purposely chose that song. It kind of just popped into my mind randomly. I saw it and I haven't seen it, heard it in a while. But I think the message of the song is so important. You know, if we could see things from God's point of view, if we could see things the way he sees things, if we could see the world how God sees the world, if we could see our past, present, and future the way God sees our past, present, and future, if we could see our problems and circumstances the way God sees our problems and circumstances, if we could see the good things and the bad things, the happy things and the sad things in our life and in other people's lives the way God sees them, we'd have a better perspective on things. We'd have a better knowledge and understanding towards certain things. And I think that message in itself is just so powerful. And, you know, it's very important and very needed that we should hear, you know. Of course, we all wish we could see things from God's point of view, but God has given us everything that we need, all the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding in order for us to kind of sort of reach that level of seeing. So if we would continue to pray, if we'd continue to fast, if we continue to read our word and continue to talk and trust God, we would see things the way God sees things. So I think that you know, that word, that perspective, if we had God's eyes, how would we see things? How would we see the world? Would we be happy with our choices? Would we be happy with the friends and friends we keep? Would we be happy with the things we do, the places we go? Decisions, right? You know, questions that we have the answer to, but we refuse to answer. Hard questions, but also very good questions that we should take into consideration. If we could see our life from God's point of view, would we like what we see? Would we be pleased and satisfied with what we see? And if the answer to that is no, and you've done a self-evaluation, and the answer to that is no, then change some things. It could be that, you know, you're making decisions that you know God doesn't approve of. You're going places that you know God does not approve of. You hang out with people that you know God does not approve of and did not condone and did not want to be a part of your life. It could be like that, or it could be something as simple as you're a kind, loving, giving person, and your kindness is continuously taken for weakness because you're continuously giving and you're being used. And the words that I'm trying to say, it's struggling. I'm struggling to find the words, but basically what I'm saying is it can be very simple or it can be very non-simple. It can be complicated, but if you're doing a self-evaluation of yourself and you don't like what you see, and you know that God isn't pleased with what he sees, not necessarily meaning that he's angry with what he sees, or it could also mean that he's hurt by what he sees, meaning that the decisions we make in our life and the people we associate with, the places that we go, the situations that we are facing, and how we got to be in that, the steps we take, the choices we make. These things can hurt God because we are his children at the end of the day. He loves us with a never-ending, everlasting love. And when we are in situations where we are hurt or where we are going through something terrible, God isn't pleased to see that. But he has to allow us to go through these things because we put ourselves in this position. And so God will allow us to go through things in order to teach us about obedience and about being obedient to his word and to his law, what he said is right, and what he said is good, what he said, what we must do, and we need to do it. And oftentimes God tells us to do things, and people think that hearing from God means hearing a literal voice in your ears. And sometimes it can be a voice in the back of your mind that's telling you, like your consciousness that's telling you, don't do this, do this. Don't do that, do this. And it can be as simple as that, or it can be someone speaking to you. And they may not even know what you've been praying and asking God about, or what has been plaguing your mind. But they will say something to you that will minister to you and relate to your situation in a way that you never could have, like there's no way they could have known about that. There's no way they could have been able to speak to you about that, because they have no idea that that's something that you were dealing with. That's something that's been plaguing your mind. That's something that you've been praying about. And it fascinates me the way God works, because God is extremely amazing. Words can't even express how amazing God is, because if we could just pause for a moment and reflect on God, and reflect on our Father and how good he is. Yes, we go through tough trials. Yes, we go through tough tribulations. Yes, we go through ups and downs. But at the end of the day, God always gives us what we ask for. And he always gives us what we need. He never gives us something that we do not need. And so oftentimes we pray for things and we don't get it right away. And we think, oh, God didn't give it to me. But you got it, right? Maybe you're a teenager listening and you're like, oh, I want the latest Jordans. I want the latest Nikes. And you prayed about it and you said, God, help me to get my funds together to get these shoes. And it didn't happen that way. The shoes came and gone, was sold out. And you didn't get what you were praying for. And you took that as something negative. You took that as something bad. It could be a simple situation like that, or it can be a more complicated situation. You know what I'm trying to say. And because you didn't get the shoe, you assume I asked God for this and God didn't give it to me. So no, God does not give me everything that I asked for. But a few years down the line, maybe, you ended up getting the shoes, same exact shoes, but for a cheaper price. And the moral of that example was to say this: because we don't get things right away when we ask God for them, does not mean that God does not plan to give it to us. He has told us time and time again in his word and through men and women of God that speak and minister into our lives that he will give us the things that we are asking for, if only we ask. If only we ask. And we already know that God gives us things on his timing, not our timing. His timing. And if we would remember that and keep that thought in our mind, we'd be better at having patience. We'd be better at being obedient to his word and to his law. And God's law is what he says. And when he says it, we must obey. That's law. That's it. And, when we read our Bible, we should read it and see the rule book, the playbook. The Bible is a playbook for life. It tells you the game plan for how to get through life. The ups and the downs, the good days and the bad days. If only we would take the time to read our word. It's very important that we as youth, that we read our word and we build that bond and that connection with God, because when you build that bond and you build that connection, you'll be amazed at how often God speaks to us and how often he says, I hear you, I'm listening, and I'm giving you what you asked for. But you have to be patient and you have to be obedient. God has really been working on me with my patience, because I know I lack patience. I know I do. And, I'll pray to God and ask God for things. And because I don't see it happening right away, or maybe I thought it was happening and it didn't happen, maybe I asked for, I don't know. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, I asked for money. This is an example. This is not something that I've actually prayed and said, God, give me money. This is just an example to put it in clear terms. I prayed and I asked God for money. And maybe I got put in a position where I was able to make some money. And I thought, okay, this is going to happen. This is good. I prayed and I asked God for money. And now money is coming to me. This is good. I prayed and God delivered. And then it fell through. I never ended up getting, that position, that opportunity to receive that money that I had been praying for. And in turn, I was like, okay, God, am I being tested? Am I being tested? I'm doing my best to be obedient. I'm doing my best to follow your word, to follow your law. What am I doing wrong? What should I be doing? What should I not be doing? And I begin to ask myself these questions. And what happens is God speaks in a way that I would never have thought he could be able to speak. He would speak to me through a person that I know and say this and that and the third. Something about money where they would have never known that I was in need of money had God not inspired them to say what they said to me. And so it just amazes me. It fascinates me how God works, because man, like humans, we don't work like that. We don't function like that. We don't have the ability to function like that. It's impossible for us to do things the way that God does things. And so it amazes me when people think that they can do much better than God, and you can't. Yes, you will be tested. Yes, you will be tried. Yes, you will deal with ups and downs. You will definitely deal with downs, but you have to be able to praise God in spite of the downs. You have to be able to glorify his name in spite of the hard times, because you know that God will never give you more than you can handle. He will never give you more than you can handle. He will equip you with everything you need to handle the trials that you will face in your life. And you may not see it that you are equipped, but he has given you your armor. He has given you your auxiliary. He's given you everything you need in order to face your day-to-day struggles. He's given it to you. And so the point of me bringing up that example was to say, God has really been working on me with my patience. He has been telling me since the beginning of this year. Let me be very clear, because I've been reading my Bible more. I have been praying more. I have been taking my fasting seriously, and I've been doing my best as an individual, not just as, how do I put this? Not just as a youth pastor, because as a youth pastor, you got to walk right in order to teach other youth to walk right. Not just because of that, but because I want my relationship with God to be strong. I want my connection with God to be steady. And because I want that, it's not because I want something back in return. No, I want God to be able to use me. And in order for God to use me, I got to be connected to him. And so I've really been doing my best to build that connection with God. And yes, the connection has always been there, but I've been doing my best to strengthen it, to make it stronger, to make it sturdy, to make it steady, to make it unbreakable. So I've been reading my word more. I've been praying more. I have been fasting seriously, because oftentimes a lot of us, and you know it, you know who you are, we don't take our fasting seriously, and we have to. It's important that we do that. You take your fasting seriously. You take it seriously, because when you're dealing with some terrible things in your life and you want those things to be broken, you want those things to end, you want those walls that are blocking opportunities to be shattered, you can only break those things through fasting and prayer. So it's important that we take our fasting seriously. I love when youth hear, "Oh, Authencia, you were fasting?" Yes, I was fasting. And they're like, "Oh, I don't fast." And then I get the opportunity to encourage them to fast. But I'm not going to go down the direction. To conclude what I was saying before, right? So I've been doing everything that I can to build my relationship with God. And from the beginning of this year, from January 2021, God has really been speaking to me. And if I was not paying attention, and if I was not being adept and inept to hear what God is telling me, I would have missed it. I wouldn't have heard what he was saying, and I would have missed it. And I would have been continuing to pray and ask God for things that he has already given me the solution to. And again, God is just so fascinating to me, how he is able to do so much for me and so much for billions of other people. It's amazing and it's fascinating. And so I love when man, God created man, when we say that we can do so much better than God. I love to hear that. And you know why I love to hear it? Because it gives me the opportunity to tell them how wrong you really are. We can never do more than God. We can never be better than God. We can never do God's job because we were not created to be God. And we can never be God. And so when people think and say that, you know what, I can do this on my own, good luck to you. Good luck to you. And the reason why I say that is because when we think that we can do things without God, God really shows up and shows out and says, really? You thought you could do this without me? And he shows us just how powerful he is. And so, as I was saying, you know, the beginning of this year from January, God has been really ministering to me. He has really been talking to me. And I've been praying and asking for things and asking for solutions. Not necessarily asking for physical things, but I've been asking for solutions to my problems. I've been asking for solutions. And God has really been ministering to me. He has really been talking to me through people, through situations, through things. And believe it or not, through school. You know, I'll be in class and maybe I'll hear something that if I wasn't really paying attention, I wouldn't have heard before. And that's how God works. He, you know, where you block certain things out, God will unblock your ears so you can hear what he wants you to hear. But if you're not paying attention, you'll miss what God is trying to tell you. And so God has really been working on me with my patience, because where I suffer from impatience. Many of us do. There's no shame in it. I am impatient. I lack patience. And I can say that because I know that God is working on me with that. And I can gladly say that my patience has definitely gotten better, because I've began to see and hear things that where maybe this time last year I would not have seen or heard because I was not paying attention. And so it's important that we take that spiritual journey and that spiritual walk with God, that we take the time out of our day just to sit back, lay back, and just sit in silence. Just sit in silence, and, whether it be you maybe you turn on some gospel music, some worship music, or some, instrumental type music or something, or, you just sit outside and you let the sounds of nature really just surround you and get you to that place of peace, get you to that place of tranquility. And in that moment, it is so easy to connect with God. And it's important that from a young age to an old age, that we take the time in our day to really just meditate and focus on God, to really just connect with him in a way that we probably have never connected with him before. Music is so transformative, so transitional, that it has the ability to really shape your way of thinking. So you have to be careful what you allow in your ears, because what you allow in your ears resonates in your mind and affects your choices and your decisions. So be careful of the things that you hear from people and the things that you hear through music, at school, on the job. Be very careful and be very aware, or in other words, be very woke about what you allow yourself to hear. Because when you allow things that are not of God and necessarily in your ears, it plays with your mind, and it blocks God from being able to minister to you with something, because now you have this other point of view, this other perspective sitting in your mind, taking up residence. And it's important that when you realize that you really fall back from that. At first, I used to think that maybe there was something, wrong with me. This is back when I was in middle school, high school. I used to think that there was something wrong with me because I didn't listen to music. Like, let me say that correctly. I didn't listen to, popular music. I'd sit there and listen to inspirational music, music that has words that have meaning, not music that makes no sense. You wouldn't catch me listening to that. So somebody would come up to me and say, oh, we should do this and that and the third. You should listen to this song. And like if I'm planning an event, right? And they'll say, okay, yeah, for music, we can play this. And I'll be like, what song is that? And they'll look at me like I'm crazy and say, you don't know this song? And I'll be like, no, I really don't. I don't know it. And at first I used to feel bad and say, man, like I really need to need to figure this out. I need to start listening to music. And now at this point, I realized, you know what? God didn't create me to be like everybody else. He didn't create me to fit in. He created me to stand out. So why am I going to go and conform and listen to things that I know I don't listen to and I know I don't like just because society tells me this is what you ought to be listening to? Again, be careful what you let into your ears. And the whole purpose of today's topic, which is really just to talk about how important it is to, connect with God. It's really important to connect with him. Very important, because if we connect with God, going back to the song, If We Had Your Eyes, if we connect with God, we can see things the way God sees things. We can be connected to God on a level that people will begin to see that on our lives. It will reflect in our choices and in the way we carry ourselves. And you'll begin to walk with a glow of sorts that you will just look different. The way you will feel different, and you will just look different to other people because they're gonna look at you and they're gonna want to wonder. They're gonna begin to wonder what's going on. What's so different? What did she do? What's the change? What did he do? What happened? And this is only from allowing God to really minister to you. And the older I get, the more I understand the concept and idea of really taking that spiritual journey, that time to just really connect with God. And that time is not going to be 30 seconds. It's not going to be 30 minutes. It's going to maybe take a few months, maybe take a few years to really connect with God. And connecting with God never ends. You will always be in a constant battle of trying to stay connected to God. Why? Because the devil is going to fight that connection at every opportunity. So the very second that you choose to stop reading your word, you choose to stop fasting, you choose to stop praying, you choose to stop meditating and going down that spiritual journey, you choose to stop that, is that very second that the devil is able to come in because you open that door. When you pray, when you fast, when you just allow peace and tranquility to surround you, and you stop allowing filth to surround you, what ends up happening is you block out the attacks of the devil because you have surrounded yourself with the things of God. And when you surround yourself with the things of God, one, your connection with God begins to be stronger than ever, and you begin to hear things that you weren't able to hear before. You begin to receive knowledge and understanding of things that you were not able to have knowledge and understanding about before. It's so surreal the way God can speak to us and the way that he can minister to us and the way he can do things for us in our life, if only we would allow him to. If only we would allow him to. It's so surreal what can happen if we just allow God to work. So to conclude for today's segment, I want to say this. Take the time, no matter how young you are, how old you are, take the time to connect. Take the time to really begin that spiritual walk where you will just meditate and focus on God's word. Take the time to really just tune in and get stuck in with God and to really allow him to just minister to you. Allow yourself to be put in a position where you can just be ministered to. You can be ministered to by God through people, through things. Put yourself in that position where your relationship with God can be stronger than before. And nothing, no one can break that except for you. So I want to encourage you today that you know what you're dealing with. You know what you're going through. You know at what level you're at in your life. And I want to encourage you to really just do a self-evaluation, do a self-checkup. And if you can see yourself from God's eyes, if you can see yourself from God's point of view, will God be happy with what he sees? And if you think at any point, at any level that, no, God won't be happy with this, he won't be happy with that, let it go. Let it go. Drop it. Don't hold on to it anymore. Let it go. I want to encourage you with that, to just let it go. Whatever it is that you think that God won't be pleased with, if you're looking at yourself, your life from God's point of view, and God won't be pleased with it, I'm encouraging you to just let that go and to take this time to start your spiritual walk, your spiritual journey, and to really connect with God, because you'll begin to see that as you are obedient, as you are patient, and as you are faithful, God will begin to move stronger and better in your life than ever before. So I want to encourage you today to really just connect with God, to really connect and to really just begin to meditate and focus on God and begin to see how he can work for you and how he can minister to you. So I want to say thank you so much to all of you for tuning in today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please tune in every Saturday from 4 to 5 p.m. to hear the Youth Truth Show once again, live and direct right here on Omega Radio. Please tune in on Facebook, tune in on YouTube, tune in on the theomegachurch.com/watch_live. Please tune in all the time. Trust me, your support means so much. It really does. I really thank all of you for tuning in. And I do hope that the topics and the segments that I speak on this segment, that they really minister to you and they really touch you as much as they minister to me and touch me. Because as much as I'm speaking to you, I'm also speaking to myself. So shout out to all of you on Facebook. Shout out to all of you on YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please, please, please continue to tune in. Thank you so much to all of you out there. Until next time, tune in next week, Saturday. Bye-bye.
Pile of casted crowns, the highest have come down.
listening to WYB 101.9 FM.
Be exalted, be glorified, be lifted high, be honored, be adored. We lift you, King Jesus. We will lift you high.
It's got all my worship, all my praise, all the glory, all the honor, it all belongs to you, Lord. We give it all, Lord. You be glorified.
Lord,